And welcome to the first Brand United webinar event of 2022, Dynamic Direct Mail Campaigns, Innovations, Performance, Marketing Integrations, and Advocacy. I'm Ashley Roberts, Managing Editor of Brand United and the moderator of today's event. We have a robust schedule of speakers and panelists today covering a variety of topics related to direct mail. And we're going to jump right in with our first section of the program in just a moment. Before we get started, let me take a second to point out the resources widget at the bottom of your console. It looks like an open book. If you missed the tech tips video we played leading up to the webinar, you can always click this widget for more information on how to use your console and access other webinar resources such as today's slides. We will also have a Q&A after our formal presentations, so please be sure to submit any questions you may have during the course of the webinar. So first, just a little bit about who we are. Brand United is the connector between online and offline marketing communication channels. Through our e-newsletter, case studies, research, and educational events, we provide marketing professionals with the information they need to maximize the impact of their campaigns and create a united brand experience. Our content equips brands, agencies, and designers with strategies and best practices for optimizing key consumer touchpoints. Our coverage of print marketing innovations, package design techniques, and customer experience trends will help you take your brand to a new level of impact. I am also going to take a second to thank our sponsors today: the Center for Technical Communications, Bob Bly, Canon Solutions America, Clearview Social, Comper Media, Direct Mail 2.0, Gunderson Direct, J. Schmid Company, Mohawk Paper, Paper Specs, Parsley, Roland Papers, SQL Response, Silvamo, ID Alliance, and Printing United Alliance. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first section of the program. Over the next 30 minutes, you will hear 3 short presentations from 3 of the top creative minds in the direct mail industry. First up, we have Brent Nemeth, President and Partner at J. Schmid. So Brent, the floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's an honor to be with you today. Big fan of the Brand United organization. Love what you guys do. So it's an honor to be here today. Those of you listening in today, man, there's a lot of stuff coming your way, a lot of sort of action-packed knowledge that some top-tier names are going to share. So I'm going to tee it off. I've got about 10 minutes to share with you a client case study on direct mail. So in 10 minutes, I've got probably just enough time to sort of dig into the weeds a little bit on one case study, one direct mail piece, and share some insights on the thoughts that went into it, how it was created, the impact that it had, and share some results on the back end. So knowing that it's hard to choose and narrow down just one case study that sort of spans a spectrum of topics, but this one I think does, and I chose it specifically because it's an unusual solution. The direct mail piece itself is unusual, and it's an unusual product sold by an unusual company. So the fact that all of these things are not typical, that they're unusual, I think makes it interesting. I hope you think so too. We call it the Uncontainer from Batesville. And this is the box that rocked a centuries-old industry. So what I'm going to do, guys, first, before I show you the actual direct mail piece, I'm going to give you a little bit of a setup here on the problem at hand, the brand first, the challenge that we had facing it as a creative agency at J. Schmid, and so the audience, give you a peek behind the curtain there, and then the solution. Finally, we'll show you the goods. So first of all, a brief explanation of the brand, and this is where it gets unusual. The company was Batesville Casket Company. They make and sell caskets, and they happen to be a leader in the industry. So they're the big guys. They're the 800-pound gorilla in the casket market, and they've been around forever. I believe that Michael Jackson was buried in a Batesville casket. So was Aretha Franklin. And if I'm not mistaken, Elvis Presley himself was buried in a Batesville casket. So this is the go-to casket, in case you were wondering, in the industry. But they're the recognized leader. Superior customer service. They make a great product, reliable delivery, everything you want in a trustworthy company. However, along with their tradition of excellence and position as a premium brand, came a reputation for being expensive. Their products are great, but there's a price tag that comes along with it. So a lot of folks could not afford, frankly, a Batesville casket. And by folks, I mean the audience that we're talking about here, funeral directors. These are the guys who buy the caskets. So being a funeral director, it's not just a job, it's a calling. These are unique, special individuals. These men and women are the scaffolding for families grieving their loved ones each and every day. However, some of them have difficult bottom lines to attend to. So they're running a business, these funeral directors. So price is important to them. And the fact that believing that Batesville doesn't have a solution to fit their needs, products that they can't necessarily afford, the result of that is they don't answer the phone when Batesville reps call. And that's oftentimes how the reps at Batesville reach out. They pick up the phone and call funeral directors across the country to set up an appointment, or they walk in the door trying to get an appointment. But they were being ignored by a lot of funeral directors because the assumption, again, was, I can't afford this stuff. And many of the nationwide funeral directors had gone overseas to buy products much cheaper, et cetera. And the result of that was these caskets had to be shipped from overseas, mostly China. And so they sat in these big shipping containers, which caused problems, like we all know now, right? Fulfillment issues. So here was the strategy for Batesville. After a new pricing structure, they decided to lower some prices and offer products that were more affordable. They wanted to skip the hassles of this overseas shipping, these containers that were causing problems and the costs associated with shipping product through these containers. So our challenge as the agency, how do we get the attention of these funeral directors that have, over the years, sort of systematically ignored Batesville's sales calls? They can't, the funeral directors can't get in the door. They can't get them to pick up the phone. So we had to cut through and make sure at least we were being considered. So a three-dimensional mailer that demands attention became the solution. And copy that goes right to the core of the business issues, copy that pulled you in, that was engaging. So that shipping container became the concept for the direct mail piece. We're battling this idea that shipping containers are bad. I'm struggling with them. My products are sitting on a boat somewhere in these shipping containers, plus it jacks up the price of what I originally paid. Now I have to pay an additional cost to have them shipped. So the shipping container itself became this icon of all things bad. And so we played off of that and made the direct mail piece itself look like a shipping container. So this was about the size of a shoebox, roughly, and with the image of a shipping container sort of wrapped around it, the metal facing of it, and it allowed us multiple surfaces around the box, around the direct mail piece, to carry a message, to try to make sure that people open this thing up. Plus, of course, arriving in the mail, it's got the recipient's name on it, so it's personalized, customized for them. And so this is what it looked like from all sides. The dimensional piece itself, we called it the uncontainer container. It's big, beautiful Batesville box that looks like a container but delivers the uncontainer offer. And the offer was, and sort of the message that was wrapped around it, top of the line products and service at prices you would never expect from Batesville. And remember, that's the core message we're trying to get across. We just didn't have a chance to say it because people weren't picking up the phone. So this box, this direct mail piece, this dimensional thing, was the shiniest thing in the mailbox that day when it arrived. It's big. You can feel there's something good inside. It had some noise to it as the things inside rattled around. The headline's right there on the box on the outside, so you can't help but open it. And then when you did open it, here's what's inside, the shipping container box itself, but then the thing rattling around inside, getting folks' attention, was this Yeti tumbler personalized with the Batesville logo. So who doesn't want a free Yeti tumbler? You can never have enough of them. So that was a bit of a gift. Then there was a letter, a message from the CEO introducing this new pricing program. Hey, Batesville now has products that you can afford, and personalized message for the recipient with a program access code. Then there was an additional piece, a brochure that was stuck in there too, this colorful, eye-catching brochure with full program pricing information, everything you need to know to place your order. So multiple pieces tucked inside this shipping container box, and the results were phenomenal. Did it work? A resounding heck yeah, it worked. We obtained 100% deliverability, 100%. How did we know that? Every box was delivered and signed for. Folks had to sign for it so we could track it. We knew if it showed up at the door, and we knew if they received it because they signed for it. So 100% of these things were delivered and signed for and reached their actual destination, the funeral home director that we wanted to get in front of. It increased awareness of the price, this new pricing program, to 45%. From 0, nobody knew about it. So this was an awareness effort, pushed it all the way up to 45%, which will be key to the long-term success of the program. So right out of the gate, nearly 50% awareness. Then the response rate of 20% from customers reaching back out to us. Hey, I got it. I either just want to say thank you. It's pretty cool. It's good to know that you guys have products that I can afford now, or I want to learn more about it, or hey, I'd like to place an order. So response rate of 20%, I'll take that all day long, every day. And just something to note here, guys, this was a top of the funnel tactic designed to generate awareness. We just wanted people to know the fact that Batesville had products now that you can afford. You might reconsider talking to us and hearing more about it. And it gave leads to the sales team, so now they could follow up. So huge success. I want to give credit probably to the fact that it was dimensional. It cut through the clutter. Emails would have got lost. Phone calls weren't being taken. Just a flat mail piece maybe would have got glanced at and tossed aside. You could not ignore this dimensional piece. So mission accomplished. I highly recommend, when you're trying to think of ways to cut through the clutter, A, think about direct mail, but B, maybe dimensional direct mail as well. So that's my 10-minute case study. I hope you picked up some nuggets out of it that maybe will be beneficial in the future. It's been fun chatting with you. My time is up. We're going to pass it on. Next, Ashley.
Yeah, so fantastic. That was such a unique campaign and a very interesting company. So thank you so much, Brent. And so for our second of the 3 presentations, I am pleased to introduce Mike Gunderson, president of Gunderson Direct. So Mike, take it away.
Thanks so much, Ashley. And thank you to Brand United for inviting us to speak. Always love these events, and it's a really great way to get more information out about direct mail. One of the things we're really excited about here at Gunderson Direct is informed delivery. It's been around for a little bit, but it's really starting to gain traction. And I think it's really becoming a larger tool in our communication toolbox for direct mail. And I wanted to kind of share with the audience a little bit about informed delivery, but then also provide some tactics for design and testing that you might want to implement on your upcoming campaign. So my title, a targeted digital integration with your direct mail, and it's free. I think that's pretty cool. The USPS has been working hard on this program, and I think they've really done a great job getting it out and getting it to the prospect's mailbox. So if you don't know what informed delivery is, it's an email delivered to your prospect's inbox, showing them a digital preview of their incoming mail just hours before it's delivered. And when you combine that with an interactive campaign, you're able to enhance that direct mail that comes in their mailbox. A few key takeaways is it adds a free targeted digital touch to direct mail. It reaches over 46 million Americans every day. The average open rate is 67%. It adds, when you do add an interactive campaign, it actually sorts to the top of the USPS digital digest. So your mail actually shows first before all the other mail in your mailbox. It links directly to the landing page of your campaign. The USPS does provide reporting so that you can actually do some testing around informed delivery. And it increases brand and creative recall at the mailbox. So just quickly how it works, the consumer signs up. The mail is managed during processing. If there's an interactive campaign, then those are identified, and then it essentially will switch out the scanned image in that email digest. A notification is emailed to the user, and then the user receives their mail piece. As you can see here, with no interactive campaign, it's still fairly effective in the sense that you do get a scan, and if you are doing a promotional mailer, there's a really great way to broadcast that message before they receive it inside their mailbox. But if you do have an interactive campaign applied, clearly there's a big difference here on how that's represented to the prospect, and hopefully entices them to take action even before they go out to their mailbox and receive their piece of mail. So very cool. So just talking a little bit about the design elements of the interactive campaign. First, you have the container. This is what essentially all the pieces and assets are contained within that, that email digest. You have your representative image, and this image can be used as the scan that the USPS already does on your behalf. But you could also replace that image with a representative image, so maybe a clearer version of that scan so that the user or the prospect can see it better. Or it can even be replaced with an ad image, so something that's a little bit more promotional and allows that prospect to take advantage of the benefits and value and offer of that brand before that mail comes in their mailbox. And then there's also a ride-along image. This is the bare bones. This is what the USPS requires you to include as part of that interactive campaign. So you don't need the representative image, but you do need the ride-along image to be included. And so you want this to be hardworking, you know, maybe include the brand name, include the offer, definitely include the call to action. And as you see here, exclusive opportunity, skip the wait list. So some intrigue to get people to click on it and learn more about the offer. And then finally, there is a return address from the brand that is sending you the mail. And then also some additional actions. And so the learn more action allows you to go directly to the landing page, just like the ride-along image does. But it also allows you to set a reminder. So perhaps you saw this in your digest and you want a reminder to come to your email a few days later or at a specific date. Maybe you're on vacation. And so you can set a reminder to actually have this interactive campaign sent directly to your inbox at a later date. So there's two kind of design tactics I want to share with you today. One is going to be how you might use this for promotional artwork coming to your mailbox. So postcards, self-mailers, even promotional envelopes. And then I also want to show you what you might want to try when utilizing a stealth or blind envelope. At least in our business, many of our clients have done a lot of testing, and we have seen that blind and stealth envelopes typically will get a higher response rate, especially for financial services, than a promotional envelope would in the mailbox. So I want to show you how that might work in informed delivery so you don't cannibalize the efforts that you're making on that blind and stealth envelope. So first, I'll show you the bare bone basics here, which is the ride along only. So that's just this image down here in the bottom left. And so you have the traditional scan that the USPS would provide. That would be placed right above that ride along image. And then the ride along image itself sits in the bottom left, and then that is clickable for your prospect. So that's bare bones, super easy. Submit that to the USPS. Submit it to your agency, or submit it to your through your production partner, and they'll help you set this up and make sure that everything is clickable and working. In addition, you can do a ride along plus a color clone image. So essentially what you're doing is you're replacing that scanned image, and you're adding a very nice colorful image that represents the mail piece that's coming into the mailbox. This is nice because if you have a very effective envelope or postcard or self-mailer, you can just essentially utilize that same copy and artwork to entice that prospect to take action today, right now, before they go out to their mailbox a few hours from now. So this is a really nice, complete campaign and really shows off the brand, the benefits of their product and service that they're marketing to, and again, gets the prospect excited about next steps. I did come across a recent case study from the USPS that showed they were doing some testing on doing a color clone image versus a black and white clone image. And it was a little surprising in the sense that the black and white clone image actually outperformed the click-through rate on that color image. And I think it's much like how we use maybe a stealth or blind envelope in the mailbox. The consumer is trained perhaps to scan through their mail, and when they see something in black and white, perhaps it looks a little bit more official, or their attention becomes closer on that piece of mail versus something that looks like an advertisement. So it is important to continue to test not only the artwork, the value proposition, the offers, but also the way that some of these images are being presented in the digest in order to see if you can increase performance overall. One thing that we like is actually replacing that duplicate image or representative image with an all brand new ad image. So this is something that I think can be useful and really, making your artwork a little bit more hard-hitting when it comes into the digest. So as you can see here, we're utilizing a headline and a subhead. We also use this really great little arrow that points down to the call to action to get that prospect to take action. And then in addition, we add this little thumbnail image. So we're actually utilizing the image that's coming into their mailbox so that there is some recall on that artwork, and some brand recall when they go back out to their mailbox and retrieve their mail. So hardworking digital ad, in addition to having the thumbnail along with it as a ride along on the piece of artwork itself. So those are some examples of how you might utilize it with a promotional envelope or promotional postcard or self-mailer. But what if you are trying to maybe break through the clutter by having something a little bit stealth in nature? Although we don't really want, to be misleading, sometimes, as direct marketers know, by doing a lot of testing, stealth and blind envelopes simply work well for certain cohorts and certain verticals in the mail. So we do rely on them here at Gunderson Direct. And so we want to make sure, how can we make the informed delivery work just as hard on a stealth envelope as we do with a promotional envelope? And the key to that is we don't want to cannibalize what we're trying to do in the mailbox. So we don't really want to show the image that's going to be in their mailbox with a promotional message, because then they're going to know right away, hey, they're just trying to give me some sales material here, and I just know based off of that I'm not interested in this, and so I'm going to go out and I'm going to know exactly what piece to throw out. We want to still have that opportunity to engage with that prospect, hopefully get them to commit to open up that envelope, read the first or second, the first headline and the first paragraph of that letter, and hopefully entice them enough at that point to realize, hey, this is something I'm interested in. So we don't like this approach of actually showing the scan with a promotional image. So in this case, what we would recommend to our clients is to use the ride-along image along with a color ad image, but make no reference to the stealth envelope inside the mailbox. This allows people who are interested in promotional messages, and again, because this is targeted to the mailbox and targeted to that consumer, there's a very good chance that they are in the market for something that we might be selling them. So by having an effective ad image here, points down to the call to action, we can get them, one, to try to take advantage of this offer now in their digest, and then we can get them then again out to the mailbox, look through their mail, and get them have another shot at trying to get them to respond through the mail piece itself. So it's a really great way to use informed delivery without cannibalizing the idea of that stealth or blind envelope. Some clients will say, well, look, it still sounds a little deceiving, and I don't really want to do that with the customers that we're trying to bring in. So we think a nice workaround is to still use that ad image, but use a thumbnail image on the bottom right to show them what that stealth envelope might look like, but it's a little bit smaller in nature and is not as eye-catching as that original scanned image. So definitely something to consider. As with all of these things, we want to test, just like we would with direct mail or social surrounds or anything else you're doing in your marketing mix. And the USPS provides a detailed report so you can measure and optimize your informed delivery performance. A few key things they allow you to see is how many emails actually did go out with your mail based on the subscriber base that they have. Then it allows you to see how many of those emails were open, so the open rate, and then also how many of those customers actually clicked through, and that's key to our testing. So by being able to access this information and allow that consumer or allow our marketers to see what's working in the inbox, then we're able to continually test against their control packages, even in informed delivery, allowing our customers to take advantage of both these channels in order to gain new customers. So that's my time today. I hope I didn't go too far over. I wanted to say thank you to everybody who joined the webinar today. And as a special thank you from Gunderson Direct, we'd love for you to take advantage of our free book, Beat the Control. With our free book, Beat the Control, there's hundreds of tips and tactics that you can use on your direct mail creative, your data, and your production that will help you drive more response. So please take a moment, pull out your phone, scan this QR code, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Ashley.
This is Eric with SQL. I'll jump in case little technical difficulties on Ashley's part. Appreciate you guys having us, Brand United, and thanks for everyone for coming. So we're SQL, we're a direct response marketing agency, and with my 10 minutes today, I wanted to focus on a case study around channel launch. So launching a client of ours into direct mail. This particular client was a credit card consolidation loan company. And this particular campaign was a pre-screen effort, meaning it was a firm offer of credit. The targeting was coming from direct from a bureau on credit bureau pre-selects like debt amount and credit score, as well as some other profile characteristics. So that's kind of the table set. Of course, the goal, like it is for anybody looking to launch a mail campaign from scratch, is to efficiently get to a place of a profitable campaign, right? One that is hopefully not just profitable, but predictable and scalable. And so that was really our mission. And instead of like most case studies, I'm going to focus on the end result, but I also want to spend a little time on the why and the how behind getting there. And so from a methodology perspective, we want to give a little bit of a flavor of all of the things that go into getting at a champion, right? And it's rarely just one great idea, although sometimes it can be. It's usually the outcome of a lot of testing and research and best practices, and I want to give a little bit of that color today with my time. Don't want to wait for the end, though, for you guys to have a sense of the performance, the cumulative benefit for this client from a sales rate perspective was a 56% lift over the industry baseline that we started with in just 12 short months' time. This client now, again, what they really hoped to achieve and what we hope to achieve for them was an evergreen program, in their case, a 7-figure monthly acquisition campaign. So 12 months and 2 minutes here. This is really looking at 2021 in the rear view. So upper left, of course, a company that doesn't have an existing program, doesn't have an existing control. So for us, a big part of what we had to start with was competitive research, right? One of the Brand United sponsors, Compromedia, is a great tool for that. Competiscan's another. We like to canvas what competitors in the space are doing with their campaigns, with their mail. We are looking for specifically the creatives that are being repeated consistently and at big volumes. We can learn a lot from that, right? We anticipate that there are smart people justifying those spends and reading those results and choosing to keep going. So based on that, we can build a pseudo control, as we'd call it, to create our own baseline. Then for this particular client, again, a lot of companies that are launching a campaign from scratch may have a precursor phase, like a gut check to prove viability. We didn't need that here. We've got a lot of mailers in this space giving us the confidence that this was going to back out. We've also got perfect, maybe not perfect, but certainly very strong sense of what data is going to work best for this particular offer. And we've got limitations on incentives and offers in this space. So most of this first test was really about wholesale creative testing. Big swings. We want to get a good round effort with 3 unique concepts against that pseudo control. And we went into market and ultimately got about a 20% lift over that pseudo control right off the bat. So from there, we had a little bit of a smaller campaign, incremental testing, not tracked on this roadmap, to check things like official, promotional, little nuanced tweaks. And in parallel to that, we did what we call digital pre-testing, which essentially is the ability to pre-test or test elements of a direct mail campaign in a digital environment. Obviously, it's safer there, quote unquote, because we can do things a lot quicker. We have, it's a lot more cost effective, of course, and there's generally less risk. And the intent of that digital pre-testing is not to necessarily find a winner and just trust that that will translate into mail, but rather to trim the fat, so to speak. Let's winnow down how many different things we could put in the mail, 15 headlines, to maybe the couple few that are deserving of a seat actually in market in a mail campaign. So between those efforts, we then were able to go back into market with another campaign with some unique creative, leveraging those learnings, got another 16% bump on top of the 19. Did another round of digital pre-testing, this time testing less on headlines and positioning and more on unique benefits, and ultimately put that back out into mail with some additional enhancements for another 8% lift. And so that kind of gets us to the champ, which I want to spend most of our time on today. But before I jump into the winning creative and some of the justification for why we believe it performed best, I want to give a quick shout out to the importance of digital in direct mail campaigns, at least at Sequel, because when we talk about sales rate and the performance of a campaign, we do it collectively, right? So that includes the digital integration, list, offer, creative, digital integration. And I had mentioned digital pre-testing on the previous roadmap. I want to give us a quick second to what that means for us. And certainly this is only one iteration of it. But ultimately what we are doing is we're taking the true target audience, a file that's been cultivated and developed offline, names and addresses, and using a deterministic identity graph, we're able to find the identities of those individuals online. Once we've done that, we then are going to actually spend real money on, in this particular case, we use native ads to test different headlines and sub-headlines or benefit statements. We're really drilling a lot of holes, see where water bubbles up, and we kind of get a heat map of winners and losers here with these different tests to then know what to bring into a subsequent mail campaign. So that's something we've been putting to use with good success and certainly helped this particular case study significantly, as there's a lot of different ways you can skin copy and key points and only limited real estate to do it, even in a long form like direct mail. Of course, informed delivery. Mike just gave a great overview to this. We're big proponents of it as well. And it's a really foundational effort to anything we mail, save, as Mike aptly described, the true official stealth environment. And it's a good entree into digital integration. And that's the last point I'll make on the importance of digital here. With the same process of taking a mail file, name and address, and linking it to individual identities online, we are able to surround the mail. We call it SQL surround here anyways. We surround the mail with digital touch points. And digital is an expansive term because it's really other channels, many of which can be programmatically purchased and delivered digitally, quote unquote, today. That can be programmatic display, web video, connected TV, OTT, newer now is connected audio, certainly paid social like Facebook and Instagram, even email. The intent of all of that, of course, is to surround this highly personalized and tactile, high-value touch of direct mail. So we know we're mailing these people. We know they're going to deal with this mail piece. Informed delivery is going to tip them off it's coming. The integration around it with digital makes sure that it's seen, dealt with, hopefully ultimately responded to and act on. So that brings us to the champ. So this is the ultimate winning creative. Now, the initial reaction of at least a handful of people that are tuned in today is going to be, well, that's not very creative. And when you compare it to what we saw in the opening session, I would agree. But at SQL, and I think just in direct response in general, our viewpoint is the best creative is the creative that sells, right? And in this particular instance, client, industry, this is the best performing so far, is the big caveat, as of course we're already testing to try to unseat it. And therefore, it is creative from that perspective. And I wanted to explain a little bit of, when we talk about direct response, it's a lot of left brain, right brain, and certainly the left brain is a big part of the success here, and some of the rationale behind why this ultimately became the champion is what I want to spend the next few minutes on. I will say, too, there is no Acme lending. If there is, sorry to Acme lending, we genericize this to protect the innocent. So obviously, the first thing you notice is the format in this particular arena, number 10, with 8.5 by 11 and an insert is pretty commonplace. Obviously, with anything that's got a letter package on it, that is a letter package, I should say, has an outer envelope. And that outer envelope is our first challenge, right? The first thing we need to get people past. We need to get them inside. And so that puts a lot of emphasis on the strategy for the outer envelope. You can go blind and stealth, and in this space, it's not totally uncommon, and certainly something that we've tested. But if you're going to put something on the outer envelope, it better be really intentional and strategic. And for us, not that this is all we tested, but one of the winning benefits, and truly a unique benefit to this brand, is having a credit for on-time payments. And that was something we wanted to bring forward in the piece because it is unique to the space. It is a differentiator. And that ultimately helped us clear that first hurdle of getting them inside, being that it's a key feature. And just in mail in general, all of the key things, repetition is good. We want to do that in a number of places. You'll notice that with the red circles. Let's get rid of that because it's noisy. So next thing, now that they're inside the letter, that's important to remember is that Heatmap Research shows us there's a lot of V-style visual info and flow that we have to track from top to right to bottom. And at the top, what I have is, let me pause for a second. I see one comment here saying that perhaps people can't see the screen. Let me pause quick and see if that's the case. Okay, we're good. individual situation. Got it. Okay. So again, thinking about this V-style flow, that's what we've got to do. We got people with short attention spans, and we've got a few seconds at a time. And so we know they're going to bounce through this creative from top to right to bottom. And so the first thing we focus on is the opening. And what we've got here is what I call a workhorse opening. We're accomplishing a lot in one sentence. We've got personalization with the first name. You're pre-qualified, so there's the air of exclusivity. What is it? Personal consolidation loan, and a big number with the up to $40,000. That's a pretty key thing to have on an outer envelope because we don't hear it's maybe extra important to start off with, and we do in this piece. We then move to the right. You see the 800 million stat. Eyes will move to a stat. That big stat shows that although this is a first-time mailing, this brand's been around a while. They've worked with a lot of customers. Size equals trust. And then we've got some other valuable real estate here for some key callouts, and we focused on differentiators. Again, things that our pre-testing uncovered as differentiators, the $250 credit, the ability to customize your payment plan, which is relatively unheard of, pause payments, something that's also very attractive and unique. And then they bounce down to the bottom where we have call to actions. And of course, we want to repeat those as well. We want to direct individuals to directly attributable tracking mechanisms where possible. So a custom URL, a custom TFN, QR codes, which I was pretty adamantly against just a couple short years ago. Now I'm a big proponent of. We all as consumers have learned to adopt those. And then finally, on the right-hand side anyways, images. This brings a warmth to pieces. Heatmap Research also shows that eyes go to human faces. And here we're trying to bring into the piece and kind of bring across some other subtle points, like it's easy. You can take care of this big life thing on your cell phone, and ultimately trying to give away or give out this key emotional benefit of relief. On the left-hand side, or really where most of the copy is, this is really what we call the skim zone. And so you want to be careful not to put anything that you think is a key point only in here. This is a good place to reiterate. These are really the table stakes benefits, so it makes sense that they would be in there. We want to say them. I think it's largely assumed that these things come with products like this in this space. And so then we have, as a final element here, an insert. And one thing worth pointing out here is we produce this typically as an 8.5 by 14-inch letter, and then you slit and nest off this insert. It gives you the ability to personalize the front side of it without really any additional cost. We did not do that in this particular creative, but it also allows it to kind of fall out as an extra element. The insert here does, which gives it a little extra pop and resonance. And on this buck slip, which again is very highly valuable real estate, we've got two things going on. On one side, social proof. It's very key in decision making, especially for a relatively unknown brand. There's that big 800 million stat again. It shows that a lot of people are signing up, and maybe I should too. What do they know that I don't know? Or the general thought that people en masse make the right decisions. And then we've got Trustpilot ratings. That's helpful. Or as seen-ons, when you see that kind of, you have that potential, we should use it. And then testimonial. And hopefully we've got a lot to choose from. This particular one let us say a lot with just one quote. Simplicity. Favorable terms, you can repay it early, it's okay even if you have bad credit, and they'll help you along the way. And then the last element to give a soundbite on is the backside of the insert, where we're focused on the savings. So the average person can save $9,500. That's a big number. Certainly competitive packages harp on that savings, and you want to be able to spell it out and justify it. But I think the bigger thing that we gleaned from our first-party research, the digital pre-testing included, was this savings of time. This idea of life after debt, to reach some level of financial freedom, and the ability to take 2 decades off of your payment is something that we believe to be very strong, not just on this buck slip, but for this client to be continually promoting and harping on. So again, in aggregate, I've thrown this number out, 56% cumulative lift. Like I said, it's sometimes just a great idea. And in a lot of cases, It's a lot of little things, a lot of little strategic things that came from either a hypothesis, a competitive sample, a pretest learning, a different client in the death care space you might learn something about that drives a call out in a creative. And so I wanted to make sure that we focused a little bit on the science when it comes to the art and science of direct response creative, to defend all those packages that you might see that aren't a scratch and sniff or a highly dimensional, as cool as they are, especially when they work, the best choice you have, and talk about a lot of the pieces you might see in your mailbox as a consumer. And so with that ends my time, and I've covered a lot, and there's a number of things that I could do whole sessions on if given the time, whether it's pre-testing or multivariate testing or SQL surround. So drop me a line if interested, Eric K. at SQL DM right there in the middle. And then visit us at SQLDM.com. We got a lot of thought leadership pieces, case studies, and whatnot for you guys to bounce through. So with that, I'll pass it back off to Ashley.
Yes.
I hope.
Yes, I'm back after a brief technical difficulty on my part, but thank you, Eric, for jumping in. And I do want to say thank you to Brent, Mike, and Eric for kicking off today's event. For the next part of the session, we're going to change up the format a little bit. So I am pleased to present Ray Van Eiderson, Manager Marketing Strategy at the United States Postal Service, who will be leading a panel type discussion with Brad Kugler, CEO and co-founder of Direct Mail 2.0, and Dennis Kelly, CEO of Postalytics. So, floor is all yours, Ray.
Thanks very much, Ashley. And what I want to do is I want to build off something that Eric said. Eric was talking about, the role of digital in direct mail, and I think it's important to recognize that there's actually two different aspects where digital and direct mail interact. The first of which is digital channels, where you can have multi-channel campaigns with direct mail and digital. And the second of which is digital technology, because the power behind a lot of the digital channels is digital technology. And these gentlemen, Brad and Dennis, are two of the people bringing digital technology to really power direct mail. So without further ado, let's introduce Brad and Dennis. Brad, can you tell us something a little bit about Direct Mail 2.0?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for that. Direct Mail 2.0 has been around for about 5 years, and what we do is we are an add-on product that lifts the response rate for direct mail, typically by about 23 to 46%. And we do that using about 11 different digital technologies that we layer on top of the mail to access that lift. And we can go into those different things that we band together, but it's out of experience and testing. We feel we found the sweet spot on how to lift response rate upon direct mail by adding these technologies.
And Dennis?
Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As Ray said, I'm Dennis Kelly, CEO of Postalytics. We're a fast-growing direct mail automation software company, and we help marketers, agencies, and nonprofits solve three big problems with traditional direct mail. First is speed. Using our software, you're able to cut the average time it takes to get a campaign out from 4 to 6 weeks down to 2 to 3 hours. Second is integration. We make direct mail a part of the marketing tech stack. So everybody deploying CRM and marketing automation and customer data portals are able to use direct mail in conjunction with all their other channels. And then finally, we help marketers track what has happened after you send by tracking both delivery and response via some proprietary software we've created.
Great. And so before we dive into a lot of that stuff in greater detail, I just want to do a little bit to set the context of what's going on with direct mail, and especially with the advent of digital. So if we look at, direct mail in the last couple of years has got, 3 times the press that it had in the, couple of years before that. And, people are asking, why is all of a sudden direct mail cool again? And, I think that there's really 2 different aspects that's driving it. The first of which is response rates. The Association of National Advertisers did a survey a couple years ago and identified that direct mail response rates are higher than all of the digital response rates put together. So that's always been a great thing that has get people interested. And then people say, but okay, that's good, but direct mail actually costs a little bit more per impression than some of the digital channels do. And so in this year's Association of National Advertisers report, what they did is they looked at average ROI. And if you look at the leftmost column, direct mail is again better than everybody else. So part of the reason why everybody's interested in direct mail is because it works. Second thing that people are interested in is about, we've been talking about this digital side, and if you look at overall forecasts, people are saying, if you look at traditional and you look at digital, where is the growth going to be? And if you look at this leftmost column here, overall, digital is expected to grow, whereas some of the traditional channels are not expected to grow quite as much. What's interesting, however, is if you look at traditional channels, you look at out of home, you look at audio, you look at TV, in each of these areas, traditional aspect within a traditional channel is looking to shrink, and the digital aspect within a traditional channel is looking to grow. So out of home, that means that digital display boards are growing, whereas paper on billboards at the side of the highway is not growing as fast. You look at audio, podcasts are growing, but terrestrial radio not growing as quickly, and TV, same thing, over the top, and connected TV growing rapidly, linear TV not growing as much. Similarly, in the direct mail space, Matterkind and Magna did a study, and they found that advanced addressable direct mail, and we'll talk about more what that means in a minute, grew 50% last year and is going to grow 30% this year. So really, you can supercharge your direct mail by adding in digital technology like what some of our colleagues have been talking about so far. So let's now bring back the experts and let's talk about, what does it mean to have digitally powered direct mail? And we think that digital can power direct mail in audience, creative, opt-to-channel, and measurement. Let's start on the audience side. Dennis, can you tell us about how digitally is powering audience targeting for you and your clients?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. So, Ray and audience, we've seen a tremendous growth in what we call triggered drip direct mail campaigns. And so these are campaigns that are integrated with a third-party software tool like a CRM or a marketing automation tool. And when a certain behavior happens, whether it's somebody who's visited a website or filled out a form or who has maybe stopped responding to email, a marketing automation workflow kicks in and says, hey, let's send this person a piece of high impact direct mail. And so it's very different than sort of the traditional list-based kind of batch process that direct mail often incorporates. And so, marketers are starting to learn about how effective this can be. And in fact, in the growth of this type of marketing between 2020 and 2021, at least in the Postalytics customer base, we've seen 226% more triggered direct mail campaigns than the year before, triggering 290% more mailers. And so you can see that as marketers are incorporating direct mail into their marketing tech stack, they're looking for easy wins, low-hanging fruit to be able to trigger these mail pieces to go out.
Awesome.
And so,
continue, please. Nope.
I was just going to say, there's a few key reasons why. Number one, triggered direct mail has a much higher response rate, right? Because this is very highly personalized. Something has happened, either that an action I've taken or an action that I haven't taken, and a piece of mail gets triggered out to address a specific issue for that particular person. And so that's a big driver of this. The second big driver is what's going on with first-party data versus third-party data. And so, as cookies are going away, as email tracking is becoming a more and more difficult proposition, marketers are looking to leverage their infrastructure they've created to trigger high impact direct mail to deliver their message.
Cool. And I know one of the areas that you don't cover yourself is lookalike models, which everybody's gotten really familiar with on the digital side. And that's really come over to direct mail as well, with people being able to upload lists of their customers and who've really been successful, and finding similar lists just is, snapping a finger is just easy as is on the digital. Now, I want to move over to Brad on the creative side, because Brad's doing some really groundbreaking work looking at predictive analytics for direct mail. And if there's anything else to add on the audience side, please jump in there too as well, please, Brad.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to add something on the audience side. One of the points that you have on your list, the bullet points, is retargeted direct mail. And we're finding a groundswell of interest in that. So going back to the previous pre-internet days of direct mail, it was sort of a spray and pray methodology. You maybe got a demographics list and you blanketed an area. But now with new technology, and it's one of the primary products that we offer, is that you can get a residential address from the anonymous visitors to your website. And what you're doing now is you're building a mailing list with the behavior or the actions they took while they were on your site. So give an example, if somebody has a shoe site and one of the visitors spent a lot of time on a pair of boots, well, that residential address or that household that the person made the inquiries from can now be targeted with a very relevant piece of direct mail. Again, we don't know the person name who actually was on the site, but you got the household, just as important. So again, in that audience, the retargeted direct mail is a vital piece of direct mail going forward, because it almost sidesteps a lot of the privacy issues. You're just sending an offer that's very relevant to someone in that household that visited that website. So I wanted to kind of put a point on that if people are not doing that, with most business being online or even services, you can use that to create a direct mail mailing list very, very cheaply. On the creative side, you had mentioned the predictive analytics for direct mail. One of the things that we're working on that we're just starting to test now is, after 5 years and almost 40,000 direct mail campaigns for pretty close to 500 million pieces of mail, we started putting these mailers into buckets by vertical, whether it's nonprofit, financial, real estate, etc. And we're now able to cross-reference or correlate the response rates, the engagement rates online with the pieces that were sent. So we're also developing a database of the creative of these pieces to correlate with certain demographics in certain verticals. Again, without disclosing any privacy, the idea here is that we can tell someone who's doing a nonprofit campaign in the Northeast, this is the engagement rate you should expect. And these are the size of the headlines. These are the calls to action that have been most successful. And we can establish a benchmark for a certain vertical campaign for a certain industry or certain demographic in a certain area. So we're getting to the point where direct mail can almost have that scientific response rate targeting that lifts it incrementally, just like digital targeting and digital response tracking can do. So that's something that's very close to becoming a reality in the direct mail space.
Cool. And Dennis, I know you guys have been groundbreaking in some of the response rate mechanisms in creative and personalization.
Yes, Ray, that's right. We've seen a huge increase, especially in the use of QR codes. I think both Eric and Mike showed examples earlier of creative with QR codes incorporated them. And over the last 2 years, we've seen subsequent 50+% increases in the usage of QR codes in the campaigns run using Postalytics. And it used to be that QR codes were, sort of this oddball thing that were not very prevalent in North America. But really, since the pandemic, we've seen a huge spike in the use of those QR codes. And from a direct mail perspective, it used to be that you had to go buy some specialized software and learn some new landing page tool in order to incorporate these response tracking mechanisms. But now, with most direct mail automation software, it's just bundled and free and a part of the software solution.
And can you talk a little bit about personalized URLs too, please?
Yeah, so personalized URLs and QR codes really sort of fit together. So within Postalytics and, some other marketing direct mail automation tools, you've got the ability to generate a unique personalized URL for each recipient so that when somebody responds to that URL, you can track the specific person who is responding, and then you can even track what pages they've gone to, whether they've hit a conversion goal or not. And so those personalized URLs and QR codes work together to provide an easy on-ramp from a direct mail physical experience into the digital realm, where you're then collecting data and you're driving a very low cost response tool.
Yeah, it's been truly impressive in the last year when, you used to have static QR codes that were just pointing for one campaign, and now you can get a personalized QR code that's just tied to me. And so when I scan it, the marketer on the other end knows exactly who it was, which is a great shift. And another big shift that we've seen in the last number of years is personalization. It used to be, dear first name, but now we're seeing increasingly, imagery, which is changing with the person. There was one survey that was done a few months ago that found that about 45% of marketers who were doing direct mail with personalization were changing images as well. So it's great to see, again, what digital printing technology is enabling changes within the direct mail space. Now I want to talk a little bit more about OptiChannel because, there was a survey that said that really only about 1 in 20 people are doing direct mail just by themselves. We heard Eric talk a little bit about what they're doing at Sequel. Brad, can you tell us a little bit more about what your clients are able to do at adding in additional channels?
Absolutely. So we can add up to 11 digital features to a direct mail campaign. And I don't want to take the entire rest of the time to go over all of them, but mail tracking, call and text tracking. So obviously when there's a phone number on a piece of mail, we have it so it's set up someone can respond via text or they can call via voice, and it's smart technology that will optimally route whatever response it is. We actually record all of those responses, whether it's a voice call or a text response. We can send back a coupon code. Any of this can be set up literally in seconds for any mailing, and it's a great tool to recover lost engagements. If somebody calls or somebody texts and then you sort of lose that connection or it drops off, you can now recover that contact and restart the conversation and hopefully repair a failed close. Additionally, informed delivery, we have been doing this pretty much since the beginning. I think we've surpassed 20,000 informed delivery campaigns. It is, and I've always touted it, it's the best thing the post office has done since the Pony Express. I really believe this product, if you're not using it, you have to be using it. The conversion rates and the response rates are out the roof over any other type of digital campaign, to be honest. We also do retargeting. The first thing someone usually does is they go to a website. Well, if they go to the website, we now then retarget them digitally for 30 days, whether they went to a social media site or they went to a typical website. We are showing that ad and hopefully that same call to action to those same people for 30 days. And we know that that will raise the likelihood of engagement the more they see that offer or the more they see that brand or that name. Additionally, as I told you, we have the direct mail retargeting option, but it can be used in a completely different way. We can actually show attribution. So as I told you, we can return a residential or business address from a website visit. We could now match that residential address or business address back to the mailing list to prove attribution and allow the advertiser to really drill down into those that have already visited the website or called in as your warmest or hottest prospect. So a lot can be done. Custom audiences, we take the mailing list and we actually create a custom audience on social media so that we, again, are hitting that same list of recipients multiple times, raising that engagement score or likelihood of that recipient. And it's about the number of times over. So for pennies on the dollar, we can kind of mimic what the largest brands do in multiple impressions per mail recipient on multiple channels within a concentrated period of time. So that's really what the goal is with our product. We're constantly adding new technology and new features to improve the number of touch points with the intended recipient. We plan to add CTV and over-the-top device connectivity too. So I guess you could say the options are limitless in targeting those direct mail recipients and improving the likelihood of conversion.
Yeah, so as you can hear, today, if you're wanting to send your direct mail and you want to do a multi-channel campaign, increasingly the tools exist so that with one place, you can do one-stop shopping to be meeting all of your needs. Dennis, you guys have done a great job of integrating into existing tools of CRM and marketing automation platforms. Can you talk a little bit more about how some of that data gets fed back into those platforms and what that means in terms of the number of dashboards that marketers need to deal with?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think it's an increasing priority on the part of marketers to have marketing channels that easily plug into the infrastructure that they're creating for the vast majority of their marketing. And so it's important that direct mail isn't this sort of standalone channel without any kind of easy access to those core marketing tech stack tools like CRM and marketing automation. So what we've done is to create integrations, native integrations with a lot of the big CRM and marketing automation players, open APIs and easy ways for things that are happening inside of your CRM to trigger a piece of mail to go out, or to create a segment or an audience and pull that in very, very quickly and easily to send out a more traditional batch-based campaign. Additionally, we've incorporated tracking, right? So that as a piece of mail is being processed, an intelligent mail barcode from the USPS is generated and then attached to the specific contact. So that as a piece of mail is being processed through the print production cycle, through the delivery cycle, events are being generated and then captured in a dashboard, either directly in Postalytics or, more importantly, synced back into your CRM and marketing automation tools, so that data about where the mail is in the production or delivery process is being consumed and used to inform other channels. So, going back to what Brad was talking about and the other panelists earlier about informed delivery, it's a great example of a multi-channel campaign where email and direct mail are working together, right, to drive higher response. And so when you've got this ability to trigger an email when a piece of direct mail is being delivered, then you've got an easy way to incorporate multiple channels, multiple touch points. And so that ability to capture that delivery moment from the USPS, sync it back into the marketing automation tool to trigger that email or to trigger a call from a rep is a super important part of that whole process. We also talked about the ability to add personalized QR codes, personalized URLs to the creative. Well, all of that also comes back. And so by capturing those scans and those browser events, right, when somebody responds to a piece of mail, that data is also synced back, right, so that your CRM and marketing automation tools are consuming direct mail information about the campaign and then using it to drive those other channels that can boost response very easily.
Cool. And so I think it's just incredible, being able to leverage all of the different channels and then have all that data come back into your system, as well as what Brad was talking a little bit ago about, what I call matchbacks. The greatest thing about direct mail is that we know what physical address it's being sent to. So if you have an e-tail establishment, you're mailing, a physical product to somebody's house, it's pretty straightforward to say, I mailed to these 10,000 addresses, these 1,000 addresses purchased in the month afterwards. I can look and I can see how many of those people who bought in the month afterwards, were on my mailing list and how many weren't. And it's insane how much more of a lift you have in terms of the people who you mail to versus the people that you don't. And that's why we're seeing the response rates, and that's why we're seeing, the growth that we are. Now, I need to allow us to move on to the next part of the panel, but I apologize to Dennis and Brad. I didn't get your email addresses on here, so can you just briefly tell your email addresses, so in case any of the Q&A that they want to follow up with you directly, and then if there's more Q&A, we'll hit it at the end of the session.
Sure, thank you. Mine's pretty simple, Brad, B-R-A-D, at dm20.com, or you can just go to dm20.com and you can find us pretty easily. Again, Brad at dm20.com.
Same thing here, super easy. Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-S, at Postalytics.com. You can also hit us up at Postalytics.com, the website, social channels, etc.
And how do you spell Postalytics, Dennis?
Postal, P-O-S-T-A-L-Y-T-I-C-S.
Great. Thanks very much, both of you. Really appreciate the conversation. Back to you, Ashley.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a fascinating and informative discussion. So thank you to Ray, Brad, and Dennis. So our final portion of the event today will be with former Congressman Kevin Yoder, partner of consulting firm Hobart, Halloway, and Quail Ventures, and campaign spokesperson for Keep Us Posted, who will be joined by a special call-in guest, Aaron Brower, Senior Director, Government Affairs for Hallmark Cards. So take it away, Kevin.
All right. Well, thank you, Ashley. Appreciate the opportunity to be on with all of you. And all this talk about sending direct mail brings us to the mail service itself and how we make sure the Postal Service remains strong, remains well-funded, keeps its rates down, and delivers on time. I, along with Aaron Brower and a number of other folks, started an organization last summer called Keep Us Posted. And our goal is to ensure that the voices of the American people, industry, interested groups are able to have their voices heard in the halls of Congress when it comes to postal policy. I served in Congress for close to a decade from the state of Kansas, the suburbs in Kansas City. And during that time, worked on a number of different postal issues. But I'll have to be honest, for many of my colleagues and for much of Congress, it just wasn't a top issue that they dealt with from day to day. Even though it's in the Constitution, Congress is required to establish and maintain the Postal Service. It's just not the type of issue that gets the headlines. It's not something that you see in campaign ads. And frankly, members of Congress don't hear a lot about it from their constituents unless they are a company like maybe some of the folks on here or someone who works for the Postal Service. Yet it's a pretty critical service. Postal Service delivers to 161 million locations daily, no matter how remote, no matter how rural. And it's a critical service to a lot of Americans, delivering medicine and packages, and of course, all this direct mail and greeting cards and financial documents, and even during COVID, delivering COVID tests. So we know we need a successful Postal Service to deliver for the American people. So we've started this organization. It's a campaign to make sure that the halls of Congress and the policymakers and the Postal Service know what the American people think and what they want from their Postal Service. So as we said, it's a community of individuals, Americans, and allied organizations united in the belief that a reliable, affordable U.S. Postal Service is essential to our way of life. We have developed a number of different tactics and ways to communicate with the American people. We've got a campaign website. We have social media content. I've been going on programs, different shows, and giving input to members of Congress as a public spokesperson. Now, you all may recall that in the last few weeks, for the first time in 16 years, Congress passed postal reform. And this legislation made significant changes to how the Postal Service financials are run, how its benefits are coordinated, and it saved the Postal Service tens of billions of dollars. And this is something that took a long time to get in place. It's something that the Postmaster General supported, the Board of Governors, as well as Republicans and Democrats in Congress. It actually kind of brought everybody together on a policy, which is pretty hard to do in Congress these days, as I'm sure you know, pretty divided. We want to make sure is that we continue to ensure that the Postal Service with these savings does the right things to help the American people. Some things that we're concerned about, like the cost of delivering mail. With all this direct mail we're talking about sending on this webinar, we want to make sure that those prices stay affordable. And the Postal Service is looking at record historic increases. So we want to make sure they take into account the voices of those who are sending this mail to make sure that these rates stay affordable. And we want to make sure that the delivery times are quick and get to people on time. And so for a long time, first piece of first-class mail was considered on time if it was delivered in 1 to 3 days. Now that's 5 days. And so we have concerns as we raise prices and we reduce services that's going to decrease demand and interest in the Postal Service, which in itself is going to continue to cause the Postal Service to have budgetary problems and lose customers. In fact, over the next 10 years, the Postal Service estimates that they will that mail volume will go down 42%. And we just don't think that's acceptable. We want to help the Postal Service bring more customers back in and hear those voices. Next, we're going to go to a quick video.
Also say I have a grandmother who turns 103 on Saturday, and I want to make sure she gets the birthday card from me. Yeah. Come on, hey, if that doesn't pull your heartstrings. And I will tell you, the best part of her day is when she gets her mail. That's right? So come on, people.
Kevin Yoder is a former GOP congressman who leads a new group, Keep Us Posted, comprised of mail users, including greeting card companies like Hallmark and small newspapers. He says it's a key moment for the Postal Service.
It's one of America's most trusted institutions that Americans rely on every single day in this country. And this is an essential service that we think many of us have taken for granted.
I think some of the challenges the Postal Service faces, though, really is just in the delays in service. And some of this, by the way, is intentional. On October 1st, the Postal Service announced that they were intentionally slowing down the mail, that a normal piece of mail, first class, is supposed to be delivered within 1 to 3 days. That can now be delivered up to 5 days and still be considered on time.
We wanted to keep delivering for Americans, and this bill that passed the House last week is sort of the first leg in that stool. We want to get this done, and then we want to continue to work to make sure that the Postal Service is here for a long time to stay, and that it keeps its rates affordable and it delivers on time for the American people.
So you can see in the video there some of the work we've been doing in terms of advocacy. We had 17,650 emails to Congress just last month, which is a massive number. Almost 2,500 tweets to Congress about the Postal Service Reform Act that is awaiting the president's signature. Now we want to continue to work on keeping rates down and improving service, keeping the Postal Service strong. Because of the rate increase structure that's in place over the next 10 years, there could be historic significant rate increases that could continue on twice a year, pushing the cost to even mail a single letter or a greeting card to over $1 a piece. And I think these rate increases could really have a harm to the folks on this call, the businesses trying to use direct mail, and puts the Postal Service at risk. So we're going to continue this work. We've got supporting partners. We're branding our product here to be able to reach more and more members of Congress so that they keep this in front of them and that they don't forget that the public cares about these issues and that we continue to engage consumers with them. We've got, as you can see here, Twitter and Facebook, 181,000 unique impressions overall with all these different items. We're looking at cable TV, print ads, different newspaper ads to really engage with the members of Congress. And then looking at creative ways. So all this is about trying to punch through, as we talked about on direct mail, we're trying to make sure that our voices are heard in the halls of Congress with all the other issues that are out there. So we're looking at getting direct mail sent to members of Congress using the digital connection to all of our new followers to make sure that members of Congress are getting postcards and other mailing pieces, which is on brand for us. And then we're also really working on a additional digital campaign, and I'll just show you some of the ads that we're working on to try to sort of capture the hearts and minds of policymakers in the Postal Service. I think we're if you guys can see the slides there or not. Our sort of final work is to try to have creative efforts on Capitol Hill through Capitol Hill events, press and district, local recognition, connecting industry and consumer and constituents with the members of Congress, as well as unique things like a school pen pal program, a signature stamp, and unique mailboxes for notes to Congress. All of this is to keep these issues on the front burner, partner with the Postal Service to ensure that it has the attention it needs from Congress, make sure the Postal Service is hearing from us, the American people, and that we make decisions that will keep the Postal Service strong, well-funded, and ensure that it has the support it needs from the American people, and that it's doing the things it needs to keep its rates down and delivery times up. So appreciate the opportunity to share these ideas and issues with you and the work that we're doing. We'd love to build partnerships with you. We have, as you saw, we had a number of members that are involved in our organization. We'd love to get your businesses, your organizations involved, because it takes an organized effort to ensure that our voices are heard in the halls of Congress. So thanks so much, and we'll kick it back to Ashley.
Oh, Kevin, this is Erin Brower, real quick with Hallmark. I just wanted to add, Kevin's really done an amazing job humanizing this very complicated and wonky issue. And after 15 years of working really hard with a bunch of fantastic partners, we finally did get this major postal reform bill across the finish line. But there's so much more work to be done. And we knew we needed fresh tactics and fresh voices again, humanizing the effort through a PR campaign and reminding people about the value of mail. And, our work has just started. And I think, as you saw from the social media impressions, we've already had a huge impact with very few resources. So I think really, in order to gain us the industry respect we deserve and a seat at the table so we can have input in future policy decisions, and really hopefully halt a self-fulfilling prophecy of a 42% mail decline, we need to band together. And we really encourage your groups to get involved with the campaign. We have a fantastic spokesperson. I thank Kevin so much for working so hard. And like, we're excited. We're excited for what's to come. And again, really just please get involved. We need your support, and thank you again for this opportunity to present today.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to both Kevin and Aaron and telling us about Keep Us Posted. So it looks like we do have a few minutes. We have a lot of questions that have come in, and we're not going to be able to get through all of them. But I can say that we will share the questions with the speakers after this event so they can reach out to you with more information. Some of them were directed specifically to some of the presenters. So I think what we'll do is we're going to take one of the questions, which is kind of general, and I'm going to ask each of you in turn to kind of give your perspective. So a question came in that was, what do you see as the biggest shifts in direct mail strategy during the past 2 years? So we're going to start with Brent. Let's see what your perspective is on this question.
Great question. The biggest shift in direct mail strategy. The first thing that comes to mind is a tactic that we use with a lot of our clients who historically, many of which have used direct mail. So it's not new to them, maybe heavy catalogers, for instance, but they used it in a different way, a very transactional way, where direct mail was treated almost as this standalone thing off to the side, separate from all digital efforts and all the other efforts that they were using for marketing purposes. And I think just recently, maybe the last 5 years, 3 years, 2 years for sure, folks are using it as a sort of a tap on the shoulder and then a driver. Direct mail has become a driver to go do something else. It's connected to other digital efforts. We use it as drivers all the time to push people either online to find more information, to go watch a video, to hopefully make a purchase, maybe go to social channels to engage in a broader conversation. But there is no better thing out there other than direct mail to drive people to go take that next step. So to me, the biggest difference is people don't expect direct mail to necessarily do all the heavy lifting anymore, to start the conversation and end it without going somewhere else too. So the shift from just it standing by itself to now becoming a mix, a part of the overall mix, is the biggest difference.
Great, very well said. Mike, what's been the biggest shift in direct mail strategy over the past 2 years for you?
Well, I just think it's so interesting how people who are really utilizing direct mail to drive new leads, it's working really well for them. So I think the first thing is just, I think people feeling more confident to get back in the mail, which is really exciting. I think utilizing tools like Postalytics and Direct Mail 2.0 are awesome, especially for customer transactional emails and, direct mail, and getting them excited and re-engaged about visiting a website. And I think things like what the USPS is doing with informed delivery. We had mentioned a few things about QR codes. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, but they are definitely working better these days, given the pandemic. And I think that that QR code lends itself to 100% attribution back to that direct mail piece. So really great things are coming out. I think more and more things are coming to the innovation of direct mail. And I'm super excited to be helping our clients out with that kind of stuff.
Great. Eric?
Yeah, thanks. These guys are touching on certainly some of the big ones. I touched on digital integration. I think we've seen that take shape in a number of ways. Technology is making it more realistic. Match rates becoming a little more tolerable and things like that certainly enable it. But I think the other big shift that we've seen a lot in the last few years have been a lot of the new brands coming into mail, digitally native brands that have hit some ceiling of growth or anticipate one coming or have been pushed to our shores from privacy changes and a shifting landscape from a digital perspective that are starting to look for other ways of growth. And, in mail, they find something that's familiar to what they're maybe lacking in a digital context today from a targeting perspective and tracking perspective. So I think for us, it's been fun to see kind of an onslaught of new prospects, new mailers that are seeing the value of this channel that we've believed in for so long.
Perfect. So moving to the kind of the tech perspective, our panelists. So Dennis and Brad, what are some of the biggest shifts that you've seen in direct mail over the past 2 years?
I think it's a ever-changing area, but I like the fact that you can now track people that have gone to a website, provide an address, and then follow them up via mail retargeting. I think that that's a very effective way to non-creepily or without going into privacy concerns, mail an offer that's relevant, that's going to get seen. I mean, people have been doing that with email and retargeting for years, but this is something tactile in your mailbox. This is something really new that's really gaining traction. And to me, that's really the future, not the future, but it's definitely something that is new and is working. We've seen actual response rates as high as 16% on direct mail retargeting efforts, which is phenomenal and justifies the investment too.
Yeah, and just to back up some of the earlier comments, clearly what we've seen with the tremendous growth of triggered direct mail is that, as Brent said, direct mail is now a touch point that is a critical part of multi-channel campaigns. And so, this idea that direct mail can look and act and feel just like all the digital channels, just like email, is something that I think is really starting to come into the consciousness of marketers and nonprofit marketers and agencies. And they're hitting, as Mike said, or as Eric said, they're hitting the digitally native brands are hitting response plateaus. And it's getting harder and harder for them to move the needle with just digital channels. And so this ability to plug direct mail into those efforts is clearly a huge trend. And it's why, 2/3 of Postalytics customers were not sending direct mail before they used Postalytics, because these brands are adding direct mail to complement the work that they're already doing.
Great. And last but not least, Kevin and Aaron. So, over the past 2 years, we've just heard some shifts in direct mail. So how does that play into Keep Us Posted and that role? Kevin, do you want to take that?
Well, I just think with the rate increases that the Postal Service is planning and the reductions in delivery times, I think that cuts against the efforts to make this direct mail so successful. And it's clearly effective, and it clearly is very useful to a lot of the companies on this call, and we can see how you connect with a lot of your customers. But there's constantly efforts within Congress to look at trying to go to 5 days of delivery instead of 6. If you reduce the days that you deliver, if you reduce the amount of people that you're reaching and the times and frequencies that you're reaching them, and you raise the rates to a price that makes it the ROI less effective, then there are challenges, and it's going to make it difficult. So I think this really demonstrates how important mail service is. You know, there's a number of people when we have these conversations in the halls of Congress that say, why do we even have a postal service anymore? Just let FedEx or UPS, deliver that stuff. We don't need mail. I don't even check it every other day, right? And they don't realize that for a lot of Americans, it's a lifeline, and it's being taken for granted. And so our job is really to, be working every day in the background, reminding members of Congress how important it is to many of the companies on this very call. And so I think there's a real tie-in there with what you all are trying to do.
Great. And Erin, anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, I would just add, it's not just all about rates and how it affects our bottom lines as businesses in this industry, but it's just the customer service piece. And when you don't have quality service and reliability and delivery times, I mean, it's a scary place to be. So I think that's why it is so important that the mailing industry has a seat at the table, and we can help direct these policies and, put our foot down when it needs to be. Because if you just have continuing declining service, you're going to lose customers, and then your rates are going to increase, and you're going to lose customers. So we have to, really join together and be a stronger, more powerful voice. Otherwise, it's really going to be damaging towards all of our businesses. So that's why we're really invested in this effort, and we know the importance of it, and we know the folks on this call know the importance of it. So we're doing our best, but we need your help.
Great. Thank you so much. And to everyone, as I mentioned before, we had dozens of questions that have come in, so we will be sharing those questions with speakers. But it looks like we are out of time, so I want to thank all of our sponsors and especially our speakers and our panelists today for offering up their expertise and their time to help us offer you this educational event. So on behalf of Brand United and our generous and supportive sponsors, I want to thank you for attending today's event. If you would just take a minute to fill out the brief feedback survey that will appear on your next screen, we would be grateful. Your feedback will influence the webinars and events we bring to you in the future. And I hope to see you at the next Brand United webinar.
Thank you.